back to Reconcile. I am Grayson. It's great to be back with you. It's been obviously a bit of time since the last recording. There's a lot that's been going on in that time frame. And for anybody that knows what's been going on over the last few weeks, then you probably wondered how the last podcast came out as quick as it did. And that's just the great thing that we can do with technology. Because actually, when the last podcast came out, I was actually in Africa. I was in Tanzania, serving the people there, edifying pastors and encouraging pastors over in Tanzania to stay biblical. It was my second trip out there, and Lord willing, I'll go back in April or May timeframe for another 10 days. It's 10 days at a push. We now have 10 partnerships that are there. And those partnerships are just to edify and to strengthen the brothers there and the pastors there as well. And then, of course, when I got back from the trip a little more than a week ago now, became unwell. You can probably still hear it in my voice. And so I pray that my voice will hold out for this recording so that I can finally get some stuff out there. I've been eager to get back on the horse with recording and just being able to push stuff out that I've been able to pray about and think about while I was in Tanzania. And even before that, just again, whole reason we're doing this. And I am really thankful for the brothers that have been reaching out to me. Many of you through email, many of you through private messaging. I love that. If you have access to me that way, that's great. Keep sending it. And it's helpful because it's also giving me more material to go deeper with some things, which we'll do in future talks and time together. And again, Lord willing, I'm going to start being able to have people here with me, or maybe even phone in as my ability just with technology gets better. And these can be conversation pieces between myself and other godly men that are either working in pastoral positions and maybe have a greater wealth of knowledge, or maybe we're past elders. I have friends that are also in Christian counseling and other areas of life, and Christian men that work in just secular jobs and what it's like in their lives. And also just dads out there that I think could help us all grow greatly. And that's the point of this. It's the point of this channel. And so far, we've been sticking to that. And again, the feedback's been great from you. So thanks. Keep that coming. Please pass this information on. This channel can only last in regards to me being able to continue to push material out as one, your feedback comes into me, to the support. And this only works, the channel itself only works if we are getting this out to other men. And so please do pass on the channel to other men. I know I've got brothers that are passing that out to their men's groups in church. And yeah, I just hope that they would hang in to listen for, what may be an hour-long talk. But even if it's going on in the background and it sparks something in them to think and to pray and to maybe even lead some men to Christ, it'd be absolutely amazing. So yeah, keep that coming. If you don't have my personal information, again, because that's not out there for everybody, leave comments in the comments section. That's what it's there for. Again, we want healthy dialogue about these topics. And that helps me grow. I'm not coming to you as an expert. I'm coming to you as a pastor, and that can be, as a dear friend told me while I was in Tanzania, that's like the bittersweet part of this channel is that one, I'm not coming at an expert level, so I'm coming at you from a practical level of how either I've worked these things out or am currently working these things out in my own life and my own ministry. How I've been influenced or helped by other brothers in the ministry and other Christian brothers. Stuff that's come out of my family counseling or marital counseling with people, just ministry life in general, leadership from both church aspect and from Marine Corps aspect, and just in life and with youth leadership and ministry as well. So all these things are coming together. All these experiences are coming together, and that's what you're getting. And so there's flaws with this because this is a conversation. And there are times where I'm obviously speaking to seek authoritatively from God's word. And again, as a Christian man seeking to just be um, righteous and holy as we are called to be by Scripture, to edify you and to encourage you and spur you on in the Spirit and in truth. And so, again, that's this has been said before, but that's the point of this channel. Um, and so, yeah, we want that to keep happening. So that can happen through the dialogue. Let me get back to the point. That can happen in the dialogue, in the comment box. And so please do, if you're passing this on or if you're watching this, you've only caught 30 seconds of it. You wouldn't get to me saying this if you only caught that much, but you get what I'm saying. If you've gotten this far, hang on. Today is going to be a juicy topic. And yeah, we'll get to that shortly. I do want to, as a Christian man, and understanding that there are other Christian men and women out there doing great things, I'm actually going to put a plug in for a dear brother's company that him and his wife has started. They are home educating their children as well as my wife and I do. It's something we've taken on and believe that it's good and right. I'm not saying that every Christian has to do that, but I do believe that we live in a day and age where it's harder and harder to send your kids to school and not get back Little Caesars. And I don't mean the pizza. I mean get back Roman citizens and not citizens of God's kingdom. Or you're going to have to do a lot of back work to try to correct that. But anyway, I don't want to get sidetracked with home education. We could talk about that in another episode. But I want to put a plug in for his business. You might not, I don't know what their current rate of order is. I've ordered my stuff before I went to Tanzania, and so I have it, but I want to put it out there for you. And it's this company here. Hopefully the camera will focus in on it. There we go. Spicy Bear. These are meat rubs. I've got the Aztec Fire. I've had this. It was delicious. I believe that this was on steak when I was at the brother's house. And then this is another one from them. Same company, Spicy Bear. And this one's Coronation Chicken. And so delicious meat rubs. Want to put a plug out there for them. My kids loved it, and my kids are picky. And my kids really enjoyed these. So I'm going to be tucking into these, doing some chicken and some steak with these myself. I know that they prepped it in their air fryer. I don't own an air fryer. It made me want to buy an air fryer, but with very little counter space in our house here in the UK, I don't know if that'll work. But yeah, please check these. Please check them out. So again, the name of that is Spicy Bear. They're also on. You can follow them on Instagram. And it is, I'm just going to read right off the back of the label here for you. So it's www.spicybear.co.uk is the website. It comes in a lovely packaging. The packaging as well. I mean, these, not just this. I mean, this is a tin. You could save these and store stuff in it, whatever you want. Completely reusable. Nice tins, well packaged. My seals are broken because just wanted to have a nice sniff of that Aztec Fire and the Cornish chicken. Again, they smell lovely, great on the meat. But lovely tins, and then as well as the package that they shipped it in, it's lovely prepared and shipped from them. So yeah, give them a try. If you're here in the UK, I don't think they're going to do international shipping. Not at this point anyway. They've just started this company. But if you're here in the UK and you want to get into smoking meat, that's something that's just really taken off here, starting to take off here in the UK. It's been something in the States for yonks. That means a long time for all my American friends that just listen to that. So for quite a while, obviously, it's been a thing of smoking meat in the US, but it's becoming a thing or a bigger thing here. So check them out. Spicy Bear, again, Spicy Bear meat rubs. Well worth checking out for the next time you barbecue. Or if you've got an air fryer, we're in the winter here. It's quite cold, so use your air fryer. Go for it. So that's a bit just of a plug for a brother and his wife just seeking to honor God. And so, by the way, why I mentioned the homeschooling thing is because this is a small business, obviously, that they're trying to start so that they can afford the homeschooling way of life, because that means a sacrifice of his wife not working outside of the home. So that's a way that they can have some income coming in to help make home education more affordable. And it's not cheap; it's a sacrifice, but it's a sacrifice well worth making. And so, I want to be able to help with that. And for those that don't know as well, if you've not read the actual piece from I think the introduction, the music that you hear at the beginning and the end of this podcast, if you hang out that long, you definitely hear the first song. If you again have gotten this far into the podcast, um, but even if you listen to the first 15 seconds, you have heard Fang Fang, and that is a dear brother out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They've actually moved outside of Philly, but anyway, they are from Pennsylvania, and that brother and sister were just a dear friends to my wife and I, and I have always enjoyed their music. I like many genres of music, but I do love their Christian punk. Um, Alternative. I'm not sure which one it falls into. Maybe it's both. But thoroughly enjoy it, and the lyrics are rich. If you're not a huge fan of punk music, then I would still say listen to what is being said in the lyrics, because it is biblical truth, and I just think it's great stuff. So check Fang Fang out as well, and you can get their stuff online as well. And I always put links to their music, to both the intro and the exit song, um, to where you can get their music from. So that's down in the description below. Check them out as well. And in the future, they may have other things from other brothers and sisters that are seeking to just honor God with their small businesses, or using their gifts and talents. And so, just want to be able to promote that for them. So, again, been in Tanzania, been away, been unwell. Voice is managing to hold in. And it was a great trip to Tanzania. Always encouraged when I come back, I feel fully pumped, and then something always happens. The last trip I got unwell when I came back as well. And we thought it was malaria. So that was a week of up and down. Thankfully, it wasn't malaria, but it was still a week of up and down. And now it's been a week of up and down with a chest infection. So, but we press on. The trip was highly encouraging. The church is encouraged as they help with that. They help support, this church helps support with Bibles, and other churches as well, because that's part of what we do as well, to get these pastors Bibles, both for them and for their churches. And there's other Christian material as well that we seek to do. And it's all self-funded. So each pastor, and there are 3 of us that go, have to raise the money for each trip to be able to go and happen. So it's fully on the Lord's hands. And not only is it the funding for our flights, but it's also the funding for food that we provide at each of the locations during the conference. And so we provide that for everyone that's there. So the pastors, if there's people that have come from the village, and the families, and whatever it may be, everyone eats, and everyone hears the word of God and is taught more in depth the word of God. It's been great. So let's get into, now that we're about 13 minutes into this, let's get into something that I think is really, it's super important. It's super important to me because this topic really was a massive battle for me in young life, and into adulthood. And I think it's a huge issue across the board. Excuse me, across the board, in churches, out of churches, everywhere. And it is also a topic that was part of the push and the drive for even this channel. If you remember back to the intro, again, there were men that I was around, and I was speaking at different events, and they were encouraged and really challenged by what I was bringing to them. And they encouraged me that this stuff would be great to be able to have content continuously, not just about the topic we're going to talk about tonight, but just in general of the Christian walk, and pressing on as men of God, and all those aspects, all the things, again, we're seeking to do here on this channel. So what is that topic? That that topic is sex. Now, that's quite broad. Um, but sex, pornography, um, lust of the flesh. Um, this is a huge topic, which is not as ignored as it has been. Um, so I don't think I'm pressing into anything new here. There's nothing new under the sun anyway. But pushing into this topic from just having a real conversation, as those who would be listening, the damage of sex at a young age, the damage of pornography at a young age, the cry from men now, both in the pulpits and outside of the pulpit, um, about how it's damaging relationships, marriage specifically, um, even interpersonal relationships with children, just because of the mental aspect of what some men are suffering with, and potentially the um, having to wrestle with the shame, which then causes the withdrawal from the family. So these things are important for us to talk about and have largely not been talked about in the church. Largely, it's been my experience. Brothers, I'm going to come to you with that. I'm going to tell you it's been from my experience. I've got no other experience to come from. I don't want to give you a book. Again, I'll recommend books to you all day to read. That's fine. I love to read. And this comes from a kid that hated reading, but I love reading. I devoured 3 books while I was in Tanzania. Um, and my point is to say this: the book's great, but not everybody has the patience to sit and read that a book, excuse me. And it's just probably easier to hear some of this stuff and to be even challenged by some of this stuff when somebody's saying it. And it's largely not been said in the church. Therefore, I think we have as great of an issue as we do in the church with pornography and sex outside of marriage and all this stuff, and just wrong sexual even desires within the marriage covenant, because we aren't talking about it. Older men are not talking to younger men about it. It's like this kind of shame thing. Why would I want to talk about that? It needs to become a topic that we are comfortable talking about, and not in a derogatory, silly way. See, that's the problem. In the cultures that I've been a part of in the past, Marine Corps, there were serious problems with some of the groups that I was a part of. Now, not my Christian friends, because it just didn't get talked about. But obviously, my non-Christian friends in the Marine Corps, well, that was just joked about in work all the time. It just was. It was just a running joke about sex, sexual stuff, whatever, pornography. It's just a joke. Nobody took it seriously like it was an issue. And many of those brothers still may say to this day it's not an issue. And that's their take. And I would strongly argue against that. Strongly argue against that. And so, yeah, we've got this infection within. We've got pastors that are dealing with addictions to pornography, or even if we don't push it to the addiction level, I mean, that is taking it up. That is pushing it to quite the extreme. And I believe that there are people that are genuinely addicted to pornography. I don't think that's everyone. There would be criteria that I would say would need to be met in regards to it being a full-on addiction. For most people, it's just bad behavior, and it's rewiring the brain. So anyway, it's something we need to talk about. It's something we need to talk about. And so what qualifies me to talk to you about that? Well, one, I'm a man. Okay, just gonna say that. One, I'm a man. And so all men should be willing to talk to all men about these things, and not feel ashamed about it. And so let me give that as the first encouraging point for you, brothers. This is not about me trying to beat you over the head. And that's another thing you need to remember about all of these podcasts, all of these episodes thus far, and in the future. So yes, some of the material may come across as you need a thump upside of the head. And that's true, because I need a thump upside of the head sometimes. But it's not just me trying to come down on you. And I thank a brother for his encouragement about that. That this spurring on needs to happen. But I also understand that some people don't react, especially especially in regards to like leadership from the pulpit coming down. This came out, and I'm gonna go further into something about the leadership. One of those episodes I did right before I actually went to Tanzania, and I want to give some feedback from a brother who gave some very insightful stuff about that. But this isn't Grayson hitting you from the pulpit. This isn't me trying to just say, yo, wake up and get yourselves straight. There is a sense in that. Yes, absolutely. But this is me walking along with you. This isn't me just trying to belittle you. There's enough of that in the world. The whole world is trying to do that. But there is a sense in which we need correction, and we need to be pushed on, and we need to be reset. We need our minds reset. Um, and especially for brothers and sisters in the Lord, brothers in the Lord. There's no sister. Well, there are sisters that watch this. So, but for the brothers in the Lord, we need to be pushing one another along and helping one another. And so the qualification is: one, I'm just a man. Two, I'm a dad who has young men who is constantly trying to talk to them to walk a more pure life than I did. And I'm thankful that my sons have not encountered what I have encountered or did encounter, especially at my oldest age. And actually, I experienced pornography 2 years before his age now. So let's get into the third point, and probably the primary point that should have been, and the other ones fall underneath of it, is I did deal with the pornography addiction. Not just, ooh, I dabbled in it and I watched it. Because there are people that's all it'll ever be. I had an addiction to pornography. So how can I say, how can I qualify that as an addiction? I got up in the morning and I had to look at it, or I was thinking about it constantly. Masturbation followed in that. It's what it is. Why would I be looking at it otherwise? I know very few men. In fact, I don't know any men that just look at pornography and just put it down and don't carry on with the act of masturbation. And so, for from the age of 10, I wouldn't say I was addicted at 10, but I was exposed to it at 10. And actually, I was exposed to it at 8, but I was seriously exposed to it at the age of 10. And then it was something at 10, it was something I was desperate to get my hands on. Magazine, movie, the internet wasn't what it is now, so it had to come through Playboy, Penthouse, Club, whatever other magazine. Those are just a few that I remember off the top of my head. That it had to come from that source. And then, of course, if I could get a hold of a DVD, then that was going to be accessible that way. Um, then obviously it would have been high school when the internet was faster, and I think this stuff was like really starting to come out on the internet as free. Not that you had to pay for it, but it was free. Um, that's when it really clicked, and it became an addiction. Not so much in the first couple years of high school, but definitely in the latter parts of high school, um, which sadly at that point, um, I was already sexually active as well. Um, I thought to myself, and for the longest time, nope, I'm going to hold out for marriage. I'm going to hold out for marriage. But it just wasn't, nothing against my dad or my stepdad in this way. But they didn't talk to me about sex. And my mom didn't. Now, my mom took my magazines and DVDs if she found them and threw them in the bin, but she didn't talk to me about the stuff that she found. And nor did my dad or my stepdad. I would imagine she had a conversation with them. We've still not to this day talked about it. I've had talks about these topics with my mom. Don't get me wrong. Now, but you can't go back on that stuff. But there was no correction happening within the house. Um, so yeah. So there wasn't so much of a need once I became sexually active, but then there was. So when the times were, um, I don't even know if you can say I was careful with my sexual activity. I never did it outside of a relationship, um, like dating someone. Um, It's still, that doesn't make it right. Just let me put that out there. So if any young man that's listening to that and thinks, "Oh, well, Grayson said you could," no, no, flat out, nope. If you're dating someone, no, you need to wait till you're married. Sex is for the covenant of marriage, and I say that from somebody who desperately wishes I had waited until marriage, and somebody had confronted me about the pornography. But we'll get to that. So, um, but in college, it was gotta have it. Get up in the morning, watch it when I went home from class, would constantly. I mean, it was just bad. It was everything in my mind. And my brain was being rewired. I had no appreciation for women at that point. The pornography had just drained me of anything good about how to respect a woman, how to truly love a woman. I had no clue what it was to biblically love a woman, nor even honor God because of what I was watching, and how I was living my life. And for those that know my story, I used to say I was a Christian at that point. You know, I was raised in a nominal Christian home by God's grace. My mom and my stepdad. My dad has gone to glory. I'm glad he came to faith, and we prayed for him, but he came to faith 5 years before he died. He just died kind of quite suddenly, just a massive heart attack. Um, but my mom and my stepdad have just grown immensely in their faith over the last 10 years, really, maybe a bit more than that. Just picking a time where I can definitely point to. Um, and yeah, so but before that, it was just nominal. It was just nominal. And so there's no real challenge in the house. There was no real let's talk about sin. There's no real let's talk about the Christian ethics, Christian morals, just Scripture itself, and talking together, and reading the Word together, being convicted by the reading of the Word. None of that. No, other than saying a blessing over the food, just nothing, right? And so I wasn't convicted. I had no issues, and there wasn't any. Who was I? I wasn't going to go tell somebody. Why? Why? Why would I do that? The shame that came with that. No thanks. And so some of you are listening now and hearing, yeah, exactly. I'm not going to tell anybody about that because the shame that comes with it. But you should. But you should. You should definitely talk to somebody about it if you are dealing with it, because of the bondage that it is holding you in. One, if you're a Christian man and you are addicted to pornography, you're living in sin. And if you're married, you are committing a form of adultery. Now, you might not be sleeping with other women, but you are lusting after something. You are coveting something. That pornography has become an idol for you, and you are coveting something that is not yours. It's not your wife. God gave you one, and you need to be pure to it. And it is not just about your wife. It's about living for God. So the greater purpose is not that you're sexually addicted and you feel like, "Oh, I'm doing my wife wrong. I'm not honoring my wife." No, you're not. You're not. But even worse, you're not honoring God. You're not honoring God, because you're looking at another human being that God has created in his image, and she may be single or she may be stuck in sex trafficking. And the other things that are out there on the internet. And you, by clicking on every link that you click on, whether you pay for it or not, are funding, if it happens to be sex trafficking, you're funding it. You're funding it. Human slavery and sex trafficking. Let that sink in for a moment. You're funding it. But when you look at whatever you're looking at, you still focus back to the context of the marriage, You're still looking at something that's not yours. And you're coveting something, you're lusting after something that doesn't belong to you. And that is something that is made. And again, where I was trying to go with that is to say, if she's single, then that's somebody's future wife. Sorry to put the hand in front of the camera. That's somebody's future wife. If it, whatever relationship situation some young woman or man may be in that context as well, if they're partners, that's their thing. You just shouldn't. It doesn't matter. You're now robbing him of the joy of his wife, if that's what it is anyway. I mean, it just goes so awful so quick. I mean, I don't really want to get into the depths of how we can tie all of this into the absolute destruction of relationship. Because to be honest, they're not in any real covenant relationship to begin with. They wouldn't be doing that, and no doubt they're not believers. There's just no way. Um, or if they profess to believe, I mean, God knows the heart, right? I mean, somebody could come be saved, but they'd have to change. They wouldn't be doing that anymore. I mean, that's just flat out. It just, there's no way. Somebody in that relationship will be changing drastically. But anyway, you as the watcher are not honoring God. You're not honoring your wife. If you're a single man doing it, you're not honoring God. And you're just not honoring the woman or the man that's in the films. Even if it's just women, you're not honoring the women. That's a created thing of God. And I mean, just think about it. If you were dating a girl, would you want her business out on the internet like that? Would you be happy if other men were watching that? If you're married, would you be happy? I mean, even the non-believer that might be listening to this, uh, and I pray that there are some. Even if you're dating someone, you got to be kidding me if you think that like you're not going to be built up with jealousy and rage, thinking she's doing that to produce something. I don't care how much money it brings in. Like all her business is out there. All her business is out there. There's nothing left to the behind closed doors kind of thing. It's just all out there. It's destructive. It's just destructive. So anyway, addiction for man, I guess quite a number of years, really. I mean, it's hard to put a number on it to when it went to the addictive state. Um, but I mean, I was daily looking at pornography for at least 12 years. Maybe more than that. By God's grace, that stopped. That stopped when I got married to my wife. It was a bit rocky at first, and I had a few trip ups, and then God completely freed me of that, and I'm thankful for that. And it changed. My relationship became like no other relationship I'd had. Now it took a long time to heal, though. Just because I wasn't watching it didn't mean I wasn't tempted, didn't mean I didn't think about it, didn't mean that there weren't images in my head that were getting pulled back if I was, just sitting around bored. And I'm not even saying like I was looking at anything that would that would be something that would distract me in that way. But literally after so many hours and hours and hours and hours of watching it, it was just fried into my brain. And so it took a lot of untraining in my brain to get out of that. Um, and that's why we need to get right, men. So for the man who may be suffering from maybe just a habit of it, so maybe it's just an every once in a while thing, and it's because you're bored or you're distracted or stress. I know some people will fall back on this when they are stressed out because it's a relief. Again, I'm putting together the looking at pornography, usually directly followed by that of masturbation. And so again, it's a stress relief. It's a endorphin, dopamine, whatever other chemicals are released during orgasm. It's a dump. You feel excited, get your energy up, and it's a stress relief. Whatever. It's just like going to the gym. It's just like going on a long run for some people. Whatever it may be, it has that kind of releasing type sensation in regards to stress and what have you. It's just because the chemicals pump it into your system. So, um, so for that person, um, yeah, I just would encourage you again, disconnect yourself, put blocks on your phone for the full on addicted man as well, for the married, for the single, for whoever it may be. You need to find an accountability partner. So let me just give you a couple of practical ways that we can kind of get right about this and break free of this, because of the destruction. Um, and it is destroying you. It is destroying you. There's no doubt. It's destroying your mind. It's destroying your relationships, not only with your wife, but even I will say, even with your children, because it's a distraction. And I want to talk a little more in a bit about the things that need to die in our generation and why. Um, and this all comes full circle back to the beginning about we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it in church, and we need to talk about it out of church, and we need to be accountable. So, for the men out there that are struggling with a pornography issue and a sex, just even a wrong view of sex. I mean, this might have to be broken up into 2 episodes because I don't want to go on forever. Um, so I'm going to focus on the pornography, and I think we'll do another episode, and we'll come back to sex. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But let's talk about this for a second. The breaking free, the getting right. You can call it whatever you want. Breaking free of an addiction, getting right with Jesus, and in your relationships, you need to find accountability partners, and it's not your wife. You, now, let me say this. If you have a problem and you're looking at it, I think it is right. I know it is right for you to admit this to your wife. Some people may challenge me on that, but what I'm not doing is making your wife your accountability partner. What I'm saying is you need to ask for forgiveness for your sin to your wife. So that needs to happen. Excuse me. You need to ask forgiveness, and you need to surround yourself with men, excuse me, who are going to hold you accountable and who you are actually going to go to when you slip. There's software out there. Covenant Eyes, you have to pay for it, but how bad do you want to break free? Same. And yes, I get it. You can get around it. There's loopholes. I've worked with a lot of men over the years with this issue, and I know that there are shortcuts. I know that you can reset things, but this is just how bad do you want to break free of this? But you need some men that you can be accountable to. Men, this can come about by real conversation as we have with one another, friend to friend, pastor to friends. Whoever is within your network, start having real conversations and ask somebody, hey man, I was just wondering, like, have you ever dealt with a sexual addiction or lust, or do you still have issues with that from time to time? Do you find yourself wondering? I mean, it may seem like an awkward conversation because you think, oh, it's a Christian man. I shouldn't even have to have that conversation with him. You're full of it if you think that you don't. You're full of it if you think you don't need to have that conversation with him. And so accountability is a big thing. Put your phones down at night. Nothing really good happens. I mean, if you're somebody that works at night, that may be a different story. But just turn it off, or at least just put it down and get about your business. Spend some quality time with your kids and your wife. Do something else, but don't be stuck on that. I have friends that have put stuff in lockboxes. They've admitted that they've got a problem to their wife, and their wife does help them keep accountable. But they do it in the sense of collecting their electronic goods. That's for the bad cases. Excuse me. That's for the bad cases. But again, there's an outside accountability partner. And again, somebody may give me feedback and say, oh, well, the wife should be part of the accountability thing. But I think that can get to a point as well, in my experience, where somebody who's really suffering with this is then going to their wife, maybe even multiple times a day, and saying, I looked at pornography, I looked at pornography, I looked at pornography, I looked at pornography. And it starts to really degrade things within the relationship that may already be on rocks. And so I don't know if it's another one to keep heaping the coals on. Again, I could be wrong. Because you are sinning against your wife as well. So this isn't easy. This is complex. I would just say pray about that. Just figure out what's going to be the best for you. Maybe your pastor could help guide you in that direction and be more helpful. You'd have to think about that one. And you would check in with your wife, but I don't think she should be the primary. That's maybe the best way to say it. She shouldn't be your primary accountability partner in this. So accountability, download software if you have to on your computer or your phone. Have open and honest conversations with other men about these things, and be on your knees praying. Read the Bible more. Read the Word more. See what right living before God is, um, because the Spirit will convict you. The Spirit will convict you, and you need to be to a place. And this is come without fail. Without fail, I believe men that overcome this sin hate it. They hate their sin. They hate the addiction. They hate what it's doing to them. They hate what it's doing to their marriage. They hate what it's doing to their relationships. And so they hate the sin. You've got to be at a place in your heart and in your mind where you hate the sin. Now, I think that can be for all sins in our lives. If we're really going to be killing them, if we're really going to be winning the battle against sin in our lives, we have to hate those particular sins. And this is one where you have to hate it. But it has a physical and a mental, um, a physical and a mental appeal. And so that makes it all the more difficult. Um, yeah. So, but you still got to hate it. The battle for me was won, and this is only my experience, but I've also counseled quite a few men through this, and so I'm giving you their experience as well. But for me and for these other men, it literally came to a point where they hated it, and that's when real ground was gained in the battle, and ultimately the Lord helped them overcome. So those are ways in which we can be getting right, starting to get right, start the journey of healing, rewiring the brain. Again, this is deeper. I could go deeper with this, but this isn't Dr. Phil. Um, but maybe we'll explore some other habits later on. Again, this is a conversation starter, and I just want you to be thinking about these things. So I said something earlier about on this journey to get right that it's something that also needs to die with us. If you're a dad, um, it needs to die with our generation. I believe it needs to die with me. Therefore, I work to protect my sons from seeing it. I work to make sure the right blocks and measures are in place within the internet of the house. Although our kids aren't really like surfing the web on their own without us around, and they don't have phones, and they're not getting one anytime soon. I think that's a big one for you dads out there. Um, you can choose whatever you want to. You could choose to give your phone or give a phone to your child. My oldest is 12. He ain't got a phone. The kid's home educated. He doesn't need a phone. And if he needs to go to the shops and my wife and I allow him to do so, we pass one of our phones to him and it's locked. So the only thing he's doing is making a phone call from it. Sorry. He ain't getting a free browse on the internet. And he just wouldn't. I trust him. He's not going to. But we have open conversations. So let's talk. That's part of this. This dying with us is I'm willing to have hard conversations with my children about this. Both my girls and my boys. I mean, I have boy, girl, boy, girl. Um, and so from the age of 5, 6, we start to have open conversations about it where we talk about sexuality. We talk about what's right. We talk about what's wrong. Good touch, bad touch, all of those things. They have to be conversations that we have. I mean, the heck with all this birds and the bees stuff. You can call it whatever you want. The reality is it's sex. And we need to help them understand what is God's understanding of sex. Where is it meant to be? That it is a good thing. It is a good thing, but in the right place. And pornography is not that. Um, and so I think by killing the sin in me and then killing it for the generation in my boys is to help them understand that it's not good. It's not healthy. It can destroy their brains. It can belittle their future wives and girlfriends. And again, when I say girlfriend, I mean someone they are seeking to marry. So I don't know if girlfriend's the right thing to say. I don't know. But whatever. Their future relationships. It could destroy it. And so I speak from my own experience with him, and we have very open conversations about it. Um, Obviously, I'm not stupid enough to expose them to it. I know some parents have gone about that, be like, well, I'd rather my kid have, a pornography than be out on the streets having sex. That's just heinous. But I've heard that argument. So for somebody that might laugh at me saying that, I've literally heard that argument. Um, and it's a bad one. And you're just going to mess your kid up in a whole different way. But we need to kill that in us so that we kill it for the next generation. And the hope and prayer is that our young lads and ladies, because women look at pornography as well, they won't do it. they'll honor God and they'll seek to honor God with their lives and their purity. And we pray that it won't be an issue for them. So to to kill it and to kill it in our generation, we've got to have open conversations. So, as men in the church, and just again, men that may not be in church, if you don't want your young lads to be addicted to something like that, if you've seen the destruction of it in your relationships, then or relationship, excuse me, um, then you've got to talk about it. You've got to make comfortable conversations out of this, because they become comfortable. They're not awkward. Um, because they're normal and they should be normal. Um, we need to not just be killing the sin in our lives, but we need to make that die and go to the grave with us. It needs to go to the grave with us and setting our future, um, our children and our grandchildren, our great grandchildren up for something where we pray this wouldn't be an issue. It's going to be a tough battle because with the internet, it's no stop to this stuff anytime soon. Um, but I think we can greatly help. And I'm not naive to think that, my boys could end up going somewhere and seeing it somewhere else. That, of course. But the hope is that you build them up, that they turn and say, no, this is wrong, and I'm gone. They look away, they walk away, and they have nothing to do with it. And then that you've built it up in them and had a great conversation with them, that they'll come and talk to you about it. They'll come and tell you what they saw. And then you talk about what they saw. That's how it needs to work. So it's gotta die, and that's how we help kill it with us. It's how we help kill it for the next generation. And I hope we're able to get there with it. Man, if you think that what I've said so far is a load, and you don't think that it's as big of an issue as I'm making it out to be, then I would ask you to think about this. When you are having sex with your wife, what is it like? Are you thinking about the other women that you've seen in videos? Is sex just not even satisfying for you anymore? Um, because the reality is that happens to a lot of people. You're desensitized. You've got to have some extraordinary experience now because of all the junk that you've put in your brain, that actually your wife's just not going to do it for you. One, she doesn't look like the women in those videos, and you could be watching anything. I mean, some people like large women, some people like very skinny women, some people like tall women, some people like short women, and that might not be the person you're married to. Maybe their body's changed. Maybe you have children, and your wife's body doesn't look the same anymore. Hey, guess what? You're still called to love her. And you know what? Learn to love your wife because she's giving you children. She's giving you something more beautiful. Um, and so none of that should honestly matter. And if you weren't spoiled and you're not been tainted by pornography, then maybe you don't have those effects. But that doesn't mean you don't see other things in movies and whatnot that would say, oh, well, only if my wife was 20 years younger. Um, well, you just need to love the woman that God has given you. And you need to love her for all of your days, for better or worse, for marks, no marks, stretch marks, whatever it may be. Look, mate, you ain't getting any younger either. You got wrinkles. There's parts on you that are sagging now as well. So you're both aging together. Love the aging process. What more can I say? But to say this, to get back on point, what is your sexual relationship like with your wife? I would imagine if you're addicted to pornography or viewing it on a regular basis, it is tainted and destroyed. I would also imagine that your relationship's pretty void of really probably meaningful time together, meaningful conversations, and that's because of shame. I would say that you'd find an out probably in the pornography, and therefore you'd almost separate yourself in your relationships in general because you're distracted. There's something else out there for you that you see that has a greater value than dealing with the reality that is in front of you. Um, I want to put it out there and say that for many people, not all, but I would think many people, again, the idea and understanding of sex is so destroyed by pornography that even if you have a somewhat healthy relationship, your pornography is ruining it. And again, it is tainting the marriage bed. It is tainting your ability to have true intimate relationship with your wife because your mind, I dare say, drifts. And you're robbing yourself and you're robbing your wife. And it's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable. And I know that when you break free of this, when you're able to break free of this, what's going to happen is that relationship that maybe was so pure with your wife and was so intimately attached beyond just sex, but the true intimacy that you can get from a relationship will return. It can return. Um because it becomes more than just sex. Your relationship, what you have with your wife, you're connected in every facet, in every way. You're mentally connected. You're there. There's honesty. There's openness, and so the marriage bed and the relationship just becomes so much more pure. And so again, if you're stuck in this battle, um, yeah, hate your sin. Um, Change, start working to change. See that what you're doing isn't right. Um, Surely you wouldn't want your children doing this. Um, and again, think about what it's doing with your relationship in God. Um, it's definitely causing a handicap in your relationship, even with God. Um, I kind of want to just close on this, and it really does make me think. I'm gonna have to press further with this, and I'm hopeful that a brother or two will reach out to me and ask, at least lead me and guide me in the right ways that we're gonna need to go. Excuse me again. In the right ways that we're gonna need to go as we go a bit further with this. But I want to leave you with the kind of the drop the mic situation here. It's not the first time I've used this, so if somebody's heard me say this before, you're just getting more free nuggets here. Imagine your relationship tomorrow if your wife, not you, but if your wife was no longer able to have sex. Imagine if your wife, and I don't pray this upon anyone, and imagine though, if your wife got in a car accident today and was paralyzed and no longer had those functions, no longer would be able to live life in the way that you once lived it, and sex was a thing that was lost in your relationship. Now, me saying that, obviously, this analogy and this story has a breakdown, but the reality is too many of our relationships and our marriages are focused on sex. That's why a lot of marriages fall apart when that goes sour or it stops happening. And again, I speak to a mixed crowd, so that's why I'm using this. What will your relationship be without sex? Um, is there still a relationship? Are you still? I mean, what are you going to be okay with not um, having those desires met anymore? By me even raising that question, it should lead you to a place where you are reflecting on what is your relationship even about and what is it for? Because you didn't get married just because Paul says, well, if you can't contain yourself, then get married. That's not what Paul's saying. Paul's leading into saying that, right, yes, if you find yourself needing to be married because you're there's a sense in which in some way that Paul is saying that if you can't keep yourself pure, then marry a woman. But that's so that you may again have this covenant. But that's a whole lot of responsibility taken on like that. And I'm not trying to water this down. I remember like we're pressed in time and this is one episode. I'm not trying to do a James White and speak for 2 hours. I love the dividing line. That's not a kick on him. I listen to his show all the time. Um, but he's got a different platform and a different ministry. I'm just saying, this ain't Radio Free Geneva. So I'm not doing a 2 hour recording. So hear me on this though. If the relationship breaks down and no longer in regards to health, because if your health degrades, so why aren't you saying, oh, Grayson, what happens if I lose the ability? Yeah, who cares? Because at that point, you're not going to have a problem. I mean, not to say who cares, but the who cares. So I do mean it because you wouldn't have the problem. The problem dies because you physically don't have the ability to have sex anymore. Um, and so maybe your relationship would be fixed quickly. Maybe. Um, my point is to say, on the other end of that, what happens again to that? And so you need to focus on is the marriage more than sex? Is it more than just the physical attractiveness? This has come back to my earlier comment about you need to love your wife no matter what the stage of life is, no matter 5 kids down the road, 6 kids down the road, 8 years. All you need to men, we need to always be loving our wives' bodies, no matter what it looks like after 5 pregnancies, maybe just 1 pregnancy, whatever it may be. Maybe it's the weight gain, maybe it's the weight loss, whatever it is. You did not marry your wife. I pray you didn't marry your wife just for sexual attraction and sexual activity. So that's like a whole different. It's not a different topic, but it's a big topic. Um, and so again, you can't use the pornography then as a way out of it to fill your desires and lust. That's how I'm tying this in. Because that came up in a conversation one time. Oh man, I'm in a marriage and the relationship's down, and so I'm really struggling with, the desire to masturbate and to look at images. Um, but are you going to honor your wife? And again, people take different, or shall I say, people do take different views on masturbation and whether one shouldn't do it, shouldn't do it. Um, I'm not getting into that on this episode. Um, but to say that again, to say again, um, that's not an out if the marriage bed falls apart due to illness or some tragic reason. Um, so yeah, that's what I think I want to leave it with that is to say, one, let's kind of just do a quick recap. Men, we need to be talking about this. We need to be talking about this with one another. This needs to stop being the thing hidden in the closet, the giant that is hidden in the closet. This needs to be something that we are talking about with one another so that we can break free of this. This needs to be something that we are killing. So this is a sin, and we need to be killing it. That is it. Regularly or even at all looking, I don't just say regular, 'cause somebody will take that wrong and be like, oh, well, Grayson said you can look at it occasionally. No, like pornography, no, it's a no. It's a no. It's a no. That would go the same with me saying sex outside of marriage. It's a no. It's a no. It's a no. Um, so speaking to each other about that, talking to our young lads about that, and our young ladies about that, whether you want your wife to have that conversation with or you as a dad, I think it's very encouraging for you as a dad to do it. I talked to my oldest daughter about that. Um, um, and she trusts me to have that conversation with her. Um, and so again, it breaks down the awkward. It's not awkward. So having the conversation with our kids so that we're killing the sin for future generations. What again? How is sex within our relationships? And I would say if we're addicted to pornography or we're looking at it, it's destroyed and we need to stop it. We need to not, I'm not saying stop having sex with your wife, but I'm saying you need to stop the addiction or the looking at pornography so that it can actually bring more intimacy into your relationship, not just in the marriage bed, but also just in daily living. And it would also enrich your relationships because your mind's not distracted um, by the thoughts and the things that you're watching. Um, and then also, I want you to really think about like, what if some drastic change happened within my relationship? Marriage is what I'm talking about here, because I'm identifying that we should be having sexual relationships in a covenant marriage. Outside of that, go get well first are you well anyway I'm not even going to say that. I'm not going to say just go get married. People did that in the Marine Corps for all the wrong reasons. um, you need to discern whether you need to be in that relationship. Maybe it is a long-term relationship and you just need to get right and you need to get married. Again, I don't want to get too far off on that, but you need to get that right. That relationship needs to get right. um, and yeah, there again, sex is for the covenant relationship of marriage. Um, And so, yeah, how could that be? Again, if it was degraded very quickly and for whatever illness or tragedy, what would your marriage then look like? So again, that's a question of you thinking um, in lines of how are you viewing the relationship, the marital relationship? Is it and has it been for a long time about attractiveness, sexual fulfillment, and things like that? Um, because those things will come to an end at some point, um, and and again could happen tragically. And so, what are you left with? And Yeah, we need to be thinking about that to help us one be have a more rich relationship with our spouses, um, and uh, yeah, again to help kill some of the sexual sins that we may have. So I'm going to leave it with that. And I feel like there's a lot of stuff that we could go into and that I want to press further into with that. I'm sorry if this came kind of or seemed that it ran in multiple directions. I hopefully have clarified and brought it all back together into to why we want to talk about it, and why we should be talking about it, and the topics in regards to sexual addiction that we are talking about, and ways we can start to get ourselves out of it. Um, yeah, I think that this could again be another episode or maybe two, maybe 15, who knows. But gents, this is all about throwing something out there for you to wrestle with, and for me to challenge you with, um, to have a change in your life, to be pure for God, to be pure for your wife, to build better marriage relationships, for young men that are single to be looking forward to a really strong, pure relationship with that woman that God is going to put in your life. And so that, yeah, I think it could just help in so many different levels if we can just really be killing um, these sexual desires and these things that are just not good. And yeah, so I'll leave you with that. I look forward to the next episode. Whether it's a carry on for this, I think I'll wait for some feedback on for some folks, and we'll wrestle with it again. We'll come back around to it. Um, but look forward to hopefully um, putting another episode out next week. And yeah, excited for the feedback. Excited to hear from you guys out there. Um, and please do send me a message, like, subscribe, send this out to other people. Again, the only way that we can help other men that may be dealing with these things in their lives and get them thinking biblical, and maybe even see some men come to Christ, and some conviction in their souls about the wrong and the sins in their lives, and give their lives to Christ. Man, wouldn't that be great? Wouldn't that be great? And so, brothers, thank you. Thanks for holding in there. A bit of a long episode. I just had a lot to say, I guess, after being gone for almost 2 weeks from you guys. So God bless you all, and we'll see you next week.